On today's episode, we welcome Pete Canavan, founder of PJC Service. Pete, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So let's start on what started your journey and why did you start PJC Service?
It's an interesting story. I was actually working for another company, and I was basically doing all the work, and the owner wasn't doing a whole lot of work. He was going out drinking and falling asleep at his desk, and I was the one going out getting the business and installing the systems and picking up the checks. And I'm like, why am I doing this for somebody else? So I figured that business wasn't going to last long, and I was right. About 6 months later, after I kind of had that realization, they were out of business. So I reached out to all my former clients. I said, hey, you've been dealing with me anyway, and you want to keep dealing with me? I started my own company, and I was able to kind of jumpstart right in. So it was a little bit easier to start than, a business from scratch with 0 clients. I basically was able to begin the business rather quickly with, dozens of clients right off the bat. So, and then it's just grown from there. 31 years this year. I can't believe it when I say it, but that was in 1995.
Yeah, so that was way before, like IT was just starting at that point.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the internet really wasn't much of a thing either. So it's been an interesting sort of journey to see how all the technology has evolved over the last 30 years or so.
And was that business a cybersecurity business? What kind of business was that you started with?
Nah, there was no such thing as cybersecurity back then, really. I mean, you basically had Trojans and viruses, and you had software that, blew out like the 0 sector on the hard drive to make the systems unbootable. So, I mean, that was about all you really had to worry about. There wasn't really a whole lot of businesses online, so the whole cybersecurity, cyber attack industry really didn't exist. It was more, bad actors just trying to sort of, damage systems and not necessarily steal data. There's probably a little bit of that going on at that point, but I mean, obviously not to the extent that we've seen in the last, sort of 10 years, where it's really taken off and it's really become a huge problem for all businesses, big and small.
And in your business right now as the CEO of PGC, are you just the decision maker? Are you still IT? What's your role in your business right now?
So, I mean, I'm the founder and CEO of the company. I do a lot of the work day to day. I have a couple of people that work for me that do work as well. We've obviously changed over the years our focus from just, selling and servicing servers and workstations and things like that. I mean, we used to deal with digital cameras and, separate scanners and all kinds of different things. Now, it's evolved a lot. So now, I mean, you've got a lot of mini PCs, you've got, everybody's doing so much on their phone. We've done web development. We continue to do web development. So, I mean, obviously that whole industry has changed a lot. You've got to make sure websites are responsive and they look good on cell phones and tablets and everything. In the security side of it, the cybersecurity side of it, I really started to focus more on that about 5 years ago. And then during COVID, when we all had a lot of downtime, I developed a plan for helping businesses develop a plan for recovering from cyber attacks. Because we all know it's just a matter of time, and it doesn't matter. These bad actors have software that goes out and they look for vulnerabilities and they try to steal data or hold your data for ransom or whatever their reason is for what they do. And so we developed a plan that helps businesses basically through a 7-step process I call bulletproof cybersecurity that say, hey, what do we got to do? Step 1, step 2, step 3 to identify those threats, figure out which ones are realistic. And, then how do we figure out the minimum viable way to get our business back up and running, to get our product or service out the door while we bring the rest of the business online. And it covers everything. I mean, it even covers things like, dealing with the media, which a lot of businesses don't think about the bad PR that can happen. The last thing you want is to see your company's, name on the front page of your local or a national newspaper saying how, you were breached and all your customer records and data was stolen. I mean, that could destroy a business, right there. And certainly any business you might have in the pipeline is probably going to flee. They're not going to want to be like, well, we don't want to do business with this company. So it's a big problem. And so we talk about, getting in front of that. And there's a lot of things that have changed, obviously in the last, like I said, decade or so.
And that's what's on my mind. You mentioned like you changed a lot of angles in the service you're offering from, I think you service at first, then cybersecurity. How do you stay on top of like what you need to do right now? Because like technology has moved so much in the past 10 years, even 5 years. So how do you stay on top of now we need to do cybersecurity or now we have to focus maybe AI, now maybe the cloud. So how do you manage all that?
It's a challenge, but it's also something that you're never bored.
Yeah.
Because it's not like you're selling furniture or something like that where it's kind of doesn't change that much. There's not a whole lot of technology in like a chair or a table or
Yeah.
something. Of course, we've seen some of that, right, with those tables that like lift up now, that are better for people and whatnot. But it's totally different with technology because things have changed. And now, as you just mentioned, Max, we've got the with AI, artificial intelligence is really changing the game in all different types of businesses, all industries. And, if you're a small business and you think you don't need to really worry about it, well, you better worry about it because the advantage is you can utilize it to give yourself a better, foothold in your industry. You can help you innovate. It can help you automate. So there are a lot of things that it can really do to help a small business compete with even larger businesses because you're more nimble. You're going to be more than likely more receptive to new technology. Sure, it's a challenge. How do I stay up on it? I mean, I read a lot of different newsletters. I read different, things online. There are certain websites that I visit frequently to learn about technology. I have different investing newsletters I subscribe to that talk about what investors are looking at and what they're investing in. And that's usually a good indication of where the market's going. So that's so there's a lot of different ways to do it. I mean, obviously, when I graduated college, I used nothing from those days
Yeah.
because it does change so rapidly. And it's exciting, but it can also be frustrating, too, because it's almost like you never get a chance to catch your breath. It's like some days I wish I just sold furniture. You know what I mean? So, it's nice to sometimes have a boring or a slow day just to kind of give you a break, but it never lasts.
But do you think you can stay, let's say, in cybersecurity or MSP or any kind of tech business and not look forward to innovation into that kind of business? Or do you always have to go with innovation to stay on top of the tech coming on or the other businesses growing? Is there a way to just, let's say you stay in cyber, just do the basic of cyber and not implement AI into it? Or you always have to go with like the recent thing coming out?
You always have to evolve with the times.
Okay.
Otherwise, you get left behind. I mean, that's, I think, one reason why we've been in business over 30 years. If I
Yeah.
stayed doing what I was doing 20 years ago, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
I mean, that's sort of a simplistic answer, but it's true. I mean, it doesn't matter what technology you're using. If you're an MSP and you have some sort of cybersecurity service that you're using,
Mhm.
well, it's good because you can lean on the expertise of the company because they're innovating. So you get to take advantage of their investment in their time and their resources and their personnel and piggyback on that. So maybe you don't have to know as much, but you still have to know what is available and what threats are out there and what technologies are coming, next in order to stay on top of that. And, obviously AI is the biggest, buzzword right now. And one of my recent speaking presentations I did was about the pros and cons of AI as it relates to cybersecurity. Because there are pros and there are cons to it. I mean, the pros are it can parse through mountains and mountains of data way faster than a human can, right? The con is maybe it misses something because it thinks something is normal when it's not. So you always have to have that human element that oversees it. So you use the technology and you use things like AI to simplify mundane tasks that take a lot of time that it can do much more efficiently. And we're going to see it affect all kinds of industries. I mean, the legal industry, the medical industry, we're already seeing it in a lot of different places where, like, for example, the legal industry, lawyers have to comb through tons of, case law and other, results that have happened related to, whatever case they happen to be working on. And they've already done comparisons and the AI comes out like, 87% effective or something like that compared to like, 50% or 60% for a human.
Hmm.
Obviously, if you're in that industry, you better take advantage of it because if opposing counsel is using it and you're not, you're probably going to lose your case, or at least you're not going to have as strong of a case.
Yeah.
So it's implementing every industry, but I think primarily using it to maximize, no pun intended, maximize what it is that you do in your business. You have to find out a way to harness it to your advantage.
Yeah. And always have that someone that kind of know what the AI is putting out. Because like you can go be a lawyer and just do your AI thing and then get in front of the court and everything you're saying is like, it's not good. So you always have to have that human that actually know like, okay, it produced this, but then I can look over it and be like, okay, this is good and this is not good, and actually understand what it's doing and not just using it 100% and just going with it.
So funny story, not really funny, but funny. I actually was just talking to one of my lawyer clients the other day who was in court, and opposing counsel had their arguments and they were basically 100% AI generated.
Oh no.
And they were wrong.
There you go.
And the judge ripped them a new one. They were like, how dare you say that you're a lawyer? You're relying on technology. The technology is imperfect. You've proved that, and basically they lost. Like the guy threw the case out and was like, you're idiots,
Yeah.
So you have to verify the results. I mean, AI is only as good as the data that's fed into it. Regardless of which one you're using, you still have to go back and do your own research and say, hey, is this accurate or is it not accurate? Or is it somehow pulling data that's not correct? And we've found that not just in this instance that I'm mentioning now, but in a lot of other areas. There's actually another client of mine who runs a vitamin supplement company. Unbelievable products, and they're all science-based. He's got a science degree. They're really cutting edge stuff. And there's a website that he was telling me about. The name of it escapes me now, but essentially you can put in any article that you find online about whatever the given topic is, and it'll spit back whether or not there has been any other information that disputes it. So if you've got, if you say one thing, but there are 10 people that say the opposite, you better maybe rethink your position.
Yeah. That's interesting. And he's using AI in that way to actually get these products to get better or
correct.
Stuff like that.
To make sure that the information and the research that he's finding hasn't been disputed by somebody else. So it'll go and it'll comb through, for example, all kinds of different medical journals, obviously way faster than he could do it. Yeah. And it'll spit back a summary and say, okay, this is what we found related to whatever this vitamin or mineral or whatever it is that he's searching for. Really, it's fascinating stuff. And we're going to continue to see this evolve in all kinds of ways that we can't even fathom right now.
That's interesting. So to come back into cybersecurity threats towards small and mid-sized business, what have you seen in the last couple of years that changed a lot? I know I talk a lot about people asking for money. There's a name for that, for those kind of hacks. What have been changing so much in the past, couple of years for the mid-sized businesses for cybersecurity?
Well, ransomware continues to be essentially the number one threat. What's happening is the threat actors are getting better and better at doing things to trick people. Just 2 days ago, I got a phone call from my bank's fraud department. Came right up on my cell phone, the bank fraud department. I've talked to them before because every once in a while there'll be a transaction. They question it, right? So I answered the phone. I'm like, okay, what's going on? That's why I answered it. Fraud. I'm like, what's going on, right? Turns out they started asking me all these interesting questions. Like, okay, we have, this is a transaction that was made in Florida for $300. Was it you? No. Okay, great. We're going to credit your account, but we have to cancel the card. What's the card? It starts in, and he gives me the first 8 digits of the card. Well, the first 8 digits of a credit card or a debit card, I don't know if you know this, identifies the bank. It's publicly available. So anybody could tell you the first 4 digits of your credit card or debit card. So they're like, we need to verify the last 8 digits and the expiration date and the CVV code. Wait a minute. Nobody should be asking me for that 3-digit code. So right away, kind of my antenna went up there, my suspicion went up, sort of a red flag. And then they were asking me what the approximate balance in my account was. I'm like, if you're the bank, you should know what my account balance is, right? So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. You cancel my card. And they're like, we have to lock you out of online banking for a day. And I'm like, this doesn't sound right. So I'm like, okay, fine, whatever. But the weird thing was it came up on my caller ID as the bank's fraud department. So half of me is saying maybe it's legit. The other half saying maybe it's not. So I still didn't feel right. So I called my bank directly,
Mm.
told them what happened. They're like, yeah, there's no way we would have asked you that. I said, I didn't think so. I want
Mm.
you to really cancel this card, right?
Yeah.
And I did, and I had them reissue it. But
Mm.
the point is the criminals are getting so sophisticated that they're now able to like spoof phone numbers, and it's been happening for a little while, of, for example, legitimate businesses, so that when you're getting a phone call, it looks like you're getting a phone call from your investment company or your bank, right? Or your doctor.
Mm.
And they're going to be asking you questions and you think it really is them. So my advice to people is don't trust that when you're getting a phone call. Say, you know what? I need you to call you right back. Oh, no, we need to stay on the phone with you. It's like, no, I'm sorry, I need to call you back. Because if you call them back, you know you're calling the actual number that you have for
Mm.
them because you've talked to them in the past,
Mm.
because you're calling them, you're calling them, they're not calling you. So the spoofing, obviously it won't work that way. It's not going to route the call
Yeah.
differently.
Mm.
But the things that we've seen, in that regard, like with ransomware, we're seeing things happen where data is being stolen and extracted and then sold on the dark web, for example. So I mean, if somebody hacks into your system, and a lot of times what's happening is it's coming in through a third party. So if you're a big company and you do business with, say, 50 different vendors,
Yeah.
well, if one of those or two of those vendors doesn't have the latest security patches or hasn't been keeping up on the security that they should have, that could be the weak link. And if they've got a connection into your system, now the hacker just has to hack into that vendor. Now that vendor can hack and get in access to your system. They can extract your data. They could pull out, customers. Now they can do whatever they want to do with that data, whether they want to sell it back, ransom it for you or sell it to a competitor. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of this is happening, and it's scary. I mean, it really is. I mean, you just have to be careful. And as the saying goes, trust but verify.
And it's hard because like the way you're talking to it's like you can do all the steps to defend yourself. But then if you just go with that business that doesn't take it as serious or doesn't really invest into it, then they get hacked. Or even like I spoke with some CEOs that sometimes the people will hack the business and just stay in it in the background for like 6 months and then just see everything coming in. So you could be that new client that just come in and that hacker was already in there. And then they just see you coming in and just get your information from there, even though you do all that you can do. So that's even more scary because you have to now think about other people if they're actually doing it.
So there was a an article not that long ago, it was maybe a year ago, where I think it was the government was being very careful about any sort of new connections into their system, any sort of outside access, et cetera, even with regard to hardware, right? What happened was hackers actually were intercepting printers, installing chips in the printers en route to government facilities.
Goddamn.
So when the printer got on the network, the chip would activate and it would start phoning home. So data that was on the network, it was siphoning off and sending it out to a third party. And you would think that how could that possibly happen? Well, because it was hardware based, they plug it into the network, all of a sudden it has access.
So,
So
but
it's just there's ways around anything. I mean, a bad person with enough time, enough desire, enough reason is going to figure out a way to get into a system. They're going to figure out a way to perpetrate a crime because they're criminals, right? And so we have to do our best to try to protect ourselves and use technology. Like I think you and I talked the other day about it. It's like AI fighting AI,
yeah.
right? You've got the good people, the white hats, the people that are in the information technology space, companies like mine, where we're trying to protect our clients, and we use AI to do things like analyze network traffic and detect spikes, right? So like you're just talking about there's something on a network and it may be there for a while. Well, if your AI is monitoring your network and all of a sudden, let's say your traffic spikes by 5 times what it normally is, that should be an alert that goes to a human operator that says, oh, well, this is valid or it's not valid. Like maybe it is valid. Maybe they're installing a bunch of patches network wide at 2 a.m. And so it's a normal spike in traffic. But if they're not doing anything, Now maybe it's an abnormal spike in traffic. Maybe that's showing that somebody's actually siphoning data off the network and dumping it off site. So there are all kinds of things that we have to look for, and that's really where AI can assist, especially in the cybersecurity arena, with helping the analysis and do it way faster than a human operator can.
And do you see maybe like the CEOs or the business owners of like small and medium businesses being more aware of needing that cybersecurity? Because I feel like that's one of the challenges that I hear a lot from other CEOs. It's like selling my service to them. They see it more as spending money for nothing, while it's really just a proactive thing to not lose more money in the future, because it destroy your reputation, destroy your business for a couple of months, and you probably won't even recover from it. So do you see business owners being more open to implementing cybersecurity businesses into themselves to protect more, or it's really still something that people don't really understand?
So I'm going to help everybody listening with this one. if you're struggling to sell cybersecurity services to businesses, compare it to insurance, right? Why do we buy insurance? Why do you buy insurance for your house or your car or your business, right? You buy insurance just in case something happens. None of us like paying for it, but if you don't have it and something happens, like if you don't have insurance on your house and your house burns down, you're going to be bumming. Same thing with your business. Same thing with your car. You get into a bad car accident, you don't have insurance, there's somebody gets hurt, now you're sued, now you know, so I mean it's a domino effect, right? So if you approach that same sort of reasoning with your clients and say, hey, you know, think about this as insurance for your business. It's just like buying insurance. You're investing in it, hoping you never have to use it and you never have a problem. But if there is a problem, you're going to be really happy that you have a plan in place. You're going to be really happy that you have some technology in place that's doing some of this monitoring. You're going to be really happy that you've got a co-located data center. You're going to be really happy that you've got whatever, right? An SD-WAN backup connection. Like look what happened yesterday with Verizon, right? We had a huge, you know, outage nationwide. Well, if you had a backup carrier at your business using cellular backup that used a different provider, you know, you wouldn't have been out of business, you know, but a lot of companies lost a lot of money yesterday, I'm sure, because phone systems went down, computer systems went down. You have a huge problem. And depending on the business, every minute you're down, you could be losing money, let alone every hour, right? Or all day, you know? So depending on the business, that could translate into tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars. So when you put it in that perspective, it becomes a drop in the bucket in terms of the investment because of how much it could possibly protect you in the future.
And it's like, even coming back, it's like, what, an 80% chance that your small business gets hit or something like that? It's like a high percentage.
I'd say 100. I mean,
100? There you go.
It's gonna happen, right? In fact, a lot of small businesses have already been hacked and they don't even know it. And that's the scariest thing, right? Because you don't know what could be happening with your data or with your network. And so I would, you know, it's just a matter, you know, it's a cliche, but it is a matter of when, not if, you're going to be hacked, and probably more than once. And so if you don't have a plan in place, something like I have, this Bulletproof Cybersecurity, which is a bulletproofcybersecurity.biz, you have a plan that can help you recover and hopefully live to fight another day. But if you don't survive that initial cyber attack and you go out of business, now you have lost your livelihood. Your employees have lost their livelihood. Vendors and suppliers that depend on you for your business have taken a hit. So it's a big problem that affects not just you and your business, but affects everybody downstream that's connected to it.
And I think cybersecurity can be a proactive thing, or it's mostly reactive thing? Because you talk about your 7-step that you give to CEOs for recover afterwards, but is there a way you just mentioned with the printer to the government? Like I would never think about that, or you know, never like get those ideas. Attacker, they could come in like this. So is it more of a reactive thing, or is it able to be proactive?
You have to have a combination of both. You really do. You have to have some technology in place that allows you to monitor and allows you to understand, for example, what threats can exist, so you know what to look for. And so you also have to stay up on current trends and current threats. the way you do that is, I mean, read the news, see what's happening out there. I mean, every day practically you see in the news that another company has been hacked.
Yeah.
And these are companies with the biggest budgets, the smartest people, and the ability to do that. And they're still being hacked. Their data is still being stolen, customer records. We've all gotten that letter in the mail, right?
Yeah.
That says, oh, we regret to inform you that our systems were compromised and your data was stolen, but we're going to give you a free year of credit monitoring. Well, who cares? Somebody stole my data, right? That's a problem. And so you have to have the proactive side of it, but then you've also got to know what you're going to do when this happens. How are you going to address the situation? What is the what are your priorities? What's the minimum what is the minimum in terms of both technology and equipment and personnel that your company needs to get its product or service out the door? And your first priority should be is getting it back up at least to a skeleton crew sort of situation so that you can at least get in functioning again while you bring everything else back online 100%.
And you want to
I kind of approach it from the backside. You know what I mean? Let's figure out the best way to get you up and running quickly, even if it's in a very basic way, and then bring everything back online as quickly as possible in a safe way.
And you want to go over the steps for recovering afterwards? I know you have the 7 steps, maybe not going too super depth into it, but smallest things of like what those steps look like.
So essentially, it begins with, believe it or not, and I mentioned this and a lot of people are surprised by it, but the very first thing you should do is take a look at your company's vision and mission. Right? What's the vision of your company? What's the mission statement of your company? Okay. And why is that important? Well, it's important because you've got to know what to protect in order to ensure that you can fulfill the mission and the vision that you have for your company. Okay. And so you've got to make sure that the things that you put in place and like the controls that'll happen downstream are going to be congruent with the type of business you are. For example, obviously you have to know what threats exist out there. Then you have to know, what threats are realistic, right? I mean, if a meteor hits the planet, we all perish, who cares? You're not going to plan for that, right?
Yeah, no.
But if there's a small regional power outage, for example, that lasts for a couple of days, how do you plan for that? What do you need to do? So you have to look at the realistic threats, but you also have to look at, what is the controls that you put in place. Are they going to run counter to the mission and the vision of your company? And I'm going to give you an example. So let's say you're a marketing firm. You depend on creativity, right? Your people have to be creative. They have to have a certain amount of free reign in order to exercise that creativity, right? Yeah. So if you put a lot of restrictive controls in place, what's that going to do? That's going to squash that creativity. That's going to take those people and they're not going to be excited to work there because you're putting all of these really strict controls and limits on what they do. So you've got to be a little bit more lax in some of the things that you allow if you want the business to grow in the way that you want it to, right? Look at it from the flip side. If you're a business that needs to really protect data because you're dealing with, personally identifiable information like customer records, medical information, financial information, that sort of thing, you better have really strict controls on it. You can't have lax controls because now people can have access to data they're not supposed to, for example. So you need to have, the controls that you put in place to protect your data have to align with what your company's mission and vision are. And I don't really hear anybody really talking about that. But it's a really critical component because you want your people to thrive, you want your business to thrive, but you have to do it in such a way that it's controlled and it's not going to be stifled, or it's not going to be too lax in the controls that are put in place based on what you do. And so, the steps essentially go through, the vision and mission, and then what are the threats that are out there, and then which ones are actually viable to your business. And then you have to take a look at, what are all, depending on the business, right? I mean, the process can take about 6 months, maybe a little less for smaller business, maybe a little bit more for bigger businesses, but you have to then go take a look at all the different departments and divisions in your company, okay? You've got your customer service department, you've got your maybe if you're a manufacturer, you've got manufacturing, you've got a manufacturing floor, and you got machines out there that are doing a job. You've got accountants, you got people that are paying for payroll, you've got HR. So you go to all these different departments and you say, hey, what's the least you need to do your job? Okay. If you've got 10 machines on the floor and each one has 2 people running it, well, can you get by with 2 machines and 4 people for a couple of days while the rest of them come back online, right? If you've got a payroll or an HR department and there's 6 people in it, can you get by with 1 for a week or a day? So you have to take a look at that. And so you have to have conversations with the people in charge of these departments. And if you're a smaller business, it might be you in some of them or many of them or all of them.
Yeah.
Right. But the bigger the business, the more complicated it can be in terms of the number of departments and people you have to deal with, but the process is the same. So it's not highly complicated, and you don't have to be technical in order to make this work for your company.
I understand. So what's working well for PGC right now in the last couple of years? I think you mentioned you're in cybersecurity now. You have that recovery plan that you offer to CEOs. What's going well for the business?
Well, the educating my clients on what is a threat and what they need to do in order to protect themselves is something that I get across. I mean, I'm fortunate in that a lot of my clients have been with me a long time, so they trust me. So if I say, this is something you really need, I'm not just saying it to sell them something. I'm telling them because I truly believe it's something that they need, and they trust me to give them that information. And of course, if they come to me and they say, hey, we're thinking about buying this, and I don't think it's worth it, or I don't think it's something that's applicable, I'm going to tell them, no, you don't need that. Don't buy it. Save your money. Put it in something else. I try to have my customers get the most out of their technology that they have. But my biggest pet peeve is data loss, right? So I'm really adamant about making sure that data is backed up in more than one place, that it's monitored constantly. I've partnered with another company here in Pennsylvania that does a lot of that remote backup for me. A lot of times he knows there's a problem before I do, which is awesome, because then we can work together to solve that problem. So you've got to protect your data at all costs. You better have a copy of that data that's off-site. Even if something happens to the building itself, what happens if the building burns down and all your backups are in the building? You got a problem.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of things that can be done. If the listeners go to cybersecuritybizplan.com, they can see how to secure your company from cyber attack in 7 simple steps. There's some free training out there. There's a webinar that's recorded they can watch, and it goes over all of that pretty much in detail.
Nice. And what are some of the challenges of the business right now?
Of my business?
Yeah.
Well, the changing technology landscape is always a challenge because you're always having to learn, what's new.
Yeah.
Right now, we're seeing a lot of things that are changing in the world stage that, depending on your company, may or may not affect you. But even if you're a smaller company, a lot of the changes that are happening globally can affect you as well. I mean, we have problems that are, we're seeing things happening in Iran currently. We've got issues with, our currency, the dollar, and how it's perceived around the world. You have other countries that are utilizing other currencies for that, so the standing of that in the world isn't as strong. If you're a global company, these are things that are of big concern to you. So you've got to make sure that you're diversifying yourself, your assets, into other, currencies, into other types of things that are a value of store, or store of value rather. But it's so it's always a challenge. I mean, you have to stay on, up to speed with the news. Don't rely on any one news channel. I know there are people on both sides of the spectrum, whether you're on the left or the right, a Democrat, Republican here in the U.S. It's, you can't trust anybody 100%. So keep your mind open, but also don't be fooled and tricked by propaganda, because we've seen a lot of that. And it's scary. You have to think for yourself. And nobody's going to take care of you better than you.
Yeah.
One of the things I do is I'm also a martial arts and self-defense instructor. I'm 6th degree black belt in Hapkido and Taekwondo, and I've been teaching people how to protect themselves for 30 years, essentially. Nobody's going to protect you like you can.
Yeah.
The police are minutes away at best. What are you going to do in the meantime to protect yourself and your family if there's a threat? It's no different. I call myself the safety sensei, right? You go to thesafetysensei.com. It goes right to me because I keep people safe both in the online world and the offline world, and threats can evolve from one to the other. You can have people that are cyber stalking you that end up stalking you in the real world. You can have people that are cyber bullied in the digital world and they become bullied in the physical world. So a lot of things go back and forth between the two, and they've become so integrated anymore that it's really important that we take care of ourselves, that we educate ourselves, that we don't ignore things. I think a lot of people feel overwhelmed by technology. They feel overwhelmed that there's no way that they can learn it all. But the good news is you don't have to. Just what's important to you, go learn about it. And the internet makes it really easy. But again, trust but verify.
Yeah. And I can advocate on the police thing because I used to work at 911 dispatcher, so receiving the calls of situations. And then I'd see on the map like this guy's getting beat up or something, and you see the police are just like all the way like way far, and you're like, well, I hope you can defend yourself because we're not gonna be there in a couple seconds. It's gonna take 5, maybe 10 minutes. So it's like that can happen sometimes. And I think just come back on your geopolitical claim that you just did. I think it's the first time that I hear that could actually do something on cybersecurity. Do you think that's like a big part of what can be worked on cybersecurity, that what's happening in the world, basically?
Oh, absolutely. Look at what's happening. I mean, you have a country like Iran, which is a known major source of cyber attacks. Okay.
Oh.
If the United States is considering action against them, what do you think they're going to do? Right. They could launch an all-out cyber attack on the West, right? Or Europe, or, as anywhere they could possibly get their hands on. So that's why it's important that we understand what's happening in the world, because it can affect us indirectly. Even if we think, it's halfway around the world, it's not going to affect me. Baloney. There's no such thing anymore. We are such an interconnected world that things that happen in other countries can absolutely affect what happens to us on a daily basis. And so protecting yourself and your business has to be priority one. Yeah, maybe you don't want to spend the money, but how much more expensive would it be to go out of business, right?
A lot.
So you really have to think about that. You want to grow your business, you want to stay in business, you want to keep your people employed. You have a certain responsibility there as a business owner to do so. And the only way that you're going to be successful at that is taking steps to protect your data and your people from any threat, whether it's a physical threat from workplace violence or a cyber threat from a cyber attack.
And what are the big goals for the company in 2026, the next 6 to 12 months? Do you have any goals in mind that you want to achieve, visions or something like that?
I'm looking to do more speaking in the cybersecurity and AI arena. I'm also looking at growing more clients for my cybersecurity program because it's something that is absolutely essential. It's a drop in the bucket cost-wise when you think about how much it could potentially save you. And it's simple and it can be implemented quickly. I mean, I have 3 tiers. I mean, you could do it as a self-paced course. You could do it, which I have an online course I created for it. You could do it as a done with you, where I can kind of help you and kind of kick you in the butt and move you along to make sure you do it. And then I even have the top tier, which is I'm kind of like your phone a friend. If you do have a problem after you've completed the course and, 6 months, 8 months, a year down the road, there's a problem, you can call me and I can do my best to try to help or at least steer you in the right direction to get your business back up and running.
So before we close out, where can people reach you or talk with your business or want to work with you?
My personal website, I mentioned before, I mean, it's a little bit easier to say my name though, but just Pete, P-E-T-E, Canavan, CANAVAN.com. Will take you to my personal site. You can learn a little bit more about me and what I do and what I speak about. There's links to some other things from there as well, because I am all about, safety and security. It's very critical. I'm very passionate about it. a few years ago when I kind of realized, like, wait a minute, I'm doing like cybersecurity and keeping people safe online, and I'm a martial artist, and I'm keeping people safe offline. Like, I kind of do both. So
Mm-hmm.
that's why I came up with the safety sensei.
Yeah.
and it's good. I mean, I also train businesses. I can come in and I can train people and employees about, how to stay safe when there's things that occur there, workplace violence, for example, or active shooters. I mean, there's all kinds of threats to people's personal safety. And the most dangerous thing is when you are complacent, because when you have your routines and your comfort zones and, today's the same as yesterday and we expect tomorrow to be the same, either in a physical way or business world online. We expect things to be the same because they've been the same for a while. Well, I'm here to tell you that you cannot allow yourself to get complacent, because when you get complacent, you get comfortable. When you get comfortable, you get careless. And when you get careless, that's when problems happen.
Perfect. So Pete, thanks again for your time. Really appreciate the message and your knowledge. Hope everything goes well.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You have a good rest of your day. Thank you for having me on, Max. You have a good, Happy New Year to you, and have a great 2026.
Thank you.